Oh, my glasses are dirty. Jeez. I hope all is well. I know I'm running late, y'all, so please forgive me. Please forgive me as I get set up here. My meeting went a little bit over today, so bear with me as I get everything up and going. Here we go. Let's start our music. Let's get it going. Here we go. We'll turn it down a little bit. I hope all is well, y'all. I apologize for my tardiness again. Like I said, meetings kind of went over, but we are here, and I am happy to be able to be here. So let me finish getting all set up. I hope all is well. Definitely let me know how you're feeling in the comments, where you're watching from. Make sure to like the live so that way others can see it. And I'm excited about the topic today. Thank you all to everyone that voted on what we're going to talk about tonight, which is remaining positive. Let me get the Instagram live going really quick. Almost there. Almost there. Let's see. All right. Okay. All right, we got it going, y'all. Make sure to like the live. Make sure to like the live. And we will get started here. My hair kind of jacked today, y'all, but you know what? I don't care. Y'all gonna get what y'all gonna get, okay? Y'all gonna get what you gonna get. So this is where we at. Pigtail Central. All right. Hi Patrick, welcome in. Definitely let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Thank you so much for joining. I really do appreciate you all. If this is your first time, my name is Debbie. I am a certified mindfulness coach. This channel is all things mindfulness, mental health. If you do listen to the meditations, that is the voice that you hear in those videos. But every Monday we do discuss a topic. Thank you for watching from Quebec. Awesome. So if you are listening to any of the meditations, they're all mainly affirmative and breath work. That's really where I keep it. Outside of that, on Mondays, we talk about mental health topics that are voted via the poll. So the poll for this past week was multiple things, but you guys voted for how to remain positive. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I do have, just a second here. I do have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 ways to remain positive, especially in the space that we're in right now. I know you're in Quebec, but in the US, we trying to make it, okay? We just on a struggle bus, all right? But even globally, I know that it's been a tough 2025 and we're only a month and a half in. So I get it, y'all. So remaining positive, I'm not surprised that that's what you guys picked. I'm happy to walk through this with you guys. If you're going to stick around and watch, make sure to like the live. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe so that way you can get notifications and everything. We'll go through the 4 points on how to remain positive, and then I have, of course, like always, every week, positive affirmations to take away from tonight. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 affirmations that we'll talk about after I go through those 4 points. So again, talk back to me. Very interactive live. If you have questions, let me know. If you need me to repeat anything, let me know. And let's get started, y'all. I'm ready. I have my Celsius. Anybody know what Celsius is? You know, you be on point. Okay, I got my Celsius going. We good. So I know that we talk about positivity often on this channel. So I know I don't want this to be really redundant. So I was really intentional about the tips that I give you, because even though remaining positive looks so different in different ways. So we talked about confidence. We talked about you know, getting past our challenges. We talked about so many different aspects of remaining positive. I say that in air quotes because sometimes there is a toxic. Ugh, can't talk. Toxic positivity that happens, I think, when it comes to thinking about being positive or remaining positive. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit too, just so that way we have a well-rounded perspective of what remaining positive actually is. Because I think that we are in a time right now where mental health in itself is kind of a gimmick. A lot of people talk about just remaining positive and, you know, you are enough, and you all positive affirmations and all of these things. But I think that it's can eventually turn into being very dismissive of validation of our feelings and our emotions, to the point where it makes things worse. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit, in addition to just how to remain positive, because I think that toxic positivity actually adds to the difficulty of remaining positive. I hope that makes sense. But just to talk about point one, how can you remain positive in these times that we're living in right now, right? The first thing that you want to think about when remaining positive is to be intentional, okay? Being positive is a choice. It's not something that's going to always come naturally, especially if you're not, if you struggle with keeping a positive attitude towards things. So you have to be intentional, and you have to understand that it is a choice, and you have to choose in the moment to be positive, versus you just allowing things to happen as they happen. You have to shift your mindset. You have to shift your perspective in order to stay in the mindset that you want to stay in, which is to remain positive. So that's point number one. Be intentional about remaining positive. Understand that it's a choice. Understand that it's a mindset, and it's a matter of thinking about the perspective, right? I know that we talked about last week about mindset versus perspective, right? That holds true with this as well. Mindset is more so of your attitude towards a certain thing. Your perspective is basically based off of a situation and how you're able to view that and determine, you know, how you're going to look at it. So just keep that in mind when thinking about being intentional and making sure that positivity is a choice. Hello, is it Puyo? Hello, hi, how are you? Jacksonville kid, toxic positivity sounds more like one victimizing themselves. Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. A big part of toxic positivity is taking on the label, like, say, you know, for me, I have ADHD, right? So for me to take, well, let me even change that. I have ADHD symptoms, right? So when it comes to thinking about these things that we may have, is victimizing yourself and taking on that label, and taking that label as identity. And when you take on labels as identity, that's a dangerous game, because then you either victimize yourself, like you said, Jacksonville kid, or you take that as an excuse as to why you are the way that you are, and you take that and say, this is who I am, take it or leave it, versus, no, like, okay, yes, I can validate and understand that this is a part of my life and this is something that I struggle with. But now that I know, now that I have that knowledge, I can do these things, these list of things, to help mitigate those circumstances and to push myself forward. It goes from being a victim like being a victim of something to finding support in that something to being an advocate in that something, right? So a lot of times we stay in the victimhood of it, and we don't progress to support and then to advocate, to be an advocate. So understanding that. Uh, Hi, Rodrigo. Welcome in from Argentina. Appreciate you. Thank you for watching. So that's point number one. I know I went through a lot there, but yes, making sure to understand that you have to be intentional. You have to understand that being positive is a choice, and you have to be intentional not just in making that choice to be positive, but also shifting your mindset. And then your perspective, which we talked a lot about last week. So if you have any questions about that, make sure to go to last week's live. We talked a lot about shifting perspective and mindsets. Um, Okay, that's point number one. Point number two is reframing your thoughts. Okay, so understanding that our brain is like a computer, right? And we've gone through life programming our computer to think of a certain way, to react a certain way. Also, within that programming, there has been some things that have come in, whether it be some type of spyware or whatever that has come into our computer, like our trauma, right? That has created these cycles and these frames of how we think about things, and when it comes to our mindset, when it comes to our perspective, and when it comes to our behaviors and actions. So understanding that if your immediate response is a negative thought, right? Understanding that you can reprogram your computer. Every computer can be reset and reprogrammed, and our brains operate the same way. Okay, so you're able to reset and reprogram your computer to think differently. How do you do that, right? By challenging your negative thoughts. Any negative thought that comes into your mind, challenging it and talking back to it, not necessarily audibly, right? But if you have a thought in your mind that you know is negative, that is not conducive to the way that you want to think, you have to combat that. How do you combat that? With positive affirmations, reaffirming yourself, again, shifting your mindset, shifting your perspective, but most of all, talking back to it in the moment. So, for example, you may be doing some type of work at work, right? So you're doing some type of assignment, or you're doing some type of, even if your work is redundant, and it's something pops up where you're like, oh, that was so stupid, right? Like, why did you do that? That was dumb. Uh, and trying to, instead of just embracing that, like, oh my, that's stupid, and then you continue to have that instant replay of you're stupid, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're dumb, da 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 da. Instead of allowing your brain to do that, combating it, right? So, how can you combat that thought? The first thing that, and if that happens to me, which it does, where I'll be like, oh, Debbie, that was stupid, that was dumb. Like, why did you do that? My first thing that I always say back to myself is like, no, Debbie, you're not dumb. You're not dumb. You're not stupid. You just did what you could do in the moment with the information that you had, right? And that's okay. Now you have new information, and now you know better for next time that you can do it in a better way, right? Sometimes our negative thoughts aren't even true, right? So that's in an instance where if you may have done something that's considered stupid, like, oh no, you combat it in that way. But there's sometimes where you get negative thoughts and it's not true. You're like, nah, that's not true. I'm not accepting that. I actually am going to push back on that, and I am actually intelligent. I'm actually smart. I can do a lot of different things and have a lot of information. It's just maybe this was just an off day. Like, there's so many different ways that you can combat these negative thoughts, but the fact is that you have to combat it, and you have to do it in the moment. It's easier said than done, I think, because of the fact that we have these certain cycles. And if you have gone through life thinking this way, it's going to be difficult in the beginning to combat those things. So practice self-compassion. Make sure that when you are able to catch it, that you combat it in those moments. And the more that you do it, the more that you get comfortable with doing it, the more that you are able to catch the easier it will become. And then those positive thoughts will eventually turn in automatic thoughts, because now you have reprogrammed your computer, your brain, to think positively instead of negatively. A lot of the times, our negative thoughts are not just a symptom of our own traumas, it's a symptom of our environment. It's a symptom of how we were raised. It was a symptom of how other people have spoken to us in our past, and we've adapted those thought processes. It's also a core belief that we established based off of our past failures. So we may have had situations in the past where, you know what, in the past I wasn't the greatest at it. Like in the past, I'm not great at math, like math is just, I'm a creative mind, all right? Like my math skills have not been the greatest. If it's important to me, I can do percentages, I can add, subtract, multiply, divide. Anything that has to do with algebra, anything that has to do with something I ain't doing on an everyday basis, I can do measurements, percentages, fractions, okay? The stuff that matters, all right? But anything outside of that, I don't want to do it. And it's just a matter of one, embracing the type of mind that you have and who you are, but also taking the time to say, okay, if you really sit down and try, you actually would be able to do it. You're not bad at it. It's just you could care less about it. Let's say it that way, right? So just thinking about how we're framing our thoughts about certain situations and the things that we go into. One of the things that I also say to myself often is that when it comes to work, sometimes my job can be hard, and I have to remind myself, no, my job isn't hard. It just requires strategy. Where in my job is it hard that I feel like I need to just strategize better versus it actually being hard? So just thinking of ways, and this can be something that you journal. This can be something that it's not going to happen overnight, right? So you want to take the time to really think about, where in my life am I the most negative? And how can I come up with ways to combat those thoughts that I feel when I'm in that type of environment? Am I most negative at work? Am I the most negative at home? Am I the most negative with my friendships? Am I the most negative when it comes to my family? Is it, where in my life am I the most negative? And start there, right? And from there, you can work on it, right? And it will start to bleed into other spaces as far as like you shifting your mindset and positivity. But as we're talking through this, I want everyone to understand that it's not going to happen overnight. You have to be compassionate with yourself. You have to be kind to yourself when thinking about these things. And as you evolve, you'll start to see the difference. How do you know that there's a difference? How you respond to certain situations. Are there situations in your life that you used to get frustrated and irritated and agitated by, or are there areas in your life that you used to really be negative about that you're not as negative about anymore? Thinking about your progress as you're working through it to help motivate you in other areas is important. I know that was a mouthful, but I hope that it was helpful, because I think it's really, really important to understand that reframing your thoughts is really a practical way of remaining positive. Okay. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. No, I did. I went through it all. Okay, perfect. That was point number 2. So point number 1 was be intentional about remaining positive, making sure to understand that it's a choice and that it takes work to remain positive. And then number 2 was reframing your thoughts. Number 3, be aware and make changes to your environment. Your attitude and your sense of positivity is truly based on your environment. Now, some things we can control and some things that we can't control when it comes to environment, but understanding the most that we can do is take a look at our environment and see if there's any adjustments that we can make. Did I miss anybody? Hello, is it Shira? Shira, I think I'm saying it right. Shira May, welcome in. Thank you so much for coming in. So being aware and make changes to your environment as you can is super important. How can you be aware? understanding what you feed yourself every day, not just physical food. So, of course, we want to eat healthy and hydrate and supplement where it needs to be supplemented. I'm not even talking about that, even though that is very important, right? But in regards to remaining positive, you want to pay attention to what you are listening to and what you are seeing. Okay? So, what are you listening to? Music, podcasts, radio, and do those things reflect the type of mindset you want to have, right? When you're listening to the things that you're listening to, and just thinking about day to day what you actually are taking in, and even it may even get back to you actually listening to the things that you when it comes to music. I know a lot of times we don't listen to the words, but you are hearing these things. And when you actually, a lot of times when I listen to the words of music, I'm like, this is what I'm listening to. Okay, maybe this is why I don't have the best attitude right now, or maybe this is why I wake up angry or irritable, or maybe this is why I'm agitated. So taking time to really think about what you're listening to, and does it reflect the type of mindset that you want it to reflect. Now, granted, there are some things, sometimes we listen to the gossip news, or sometimes we have to watch the news to understand what's going on. But how much are you listening to is also important. We have to make sure that we are get doing things, or rationing ourselves and those types of things, because it can create an environment in our minds that are not positive, that is not conducive to the type of mindset that we want. So the way that I gauge that is I sandwich my days. So in the mornings and at nights before bed, I don't listen to anything negative, right? Whether it be, if I have music, when I start music in the morning, it's typically gospel, honestly. When I go to bed at night, it's usually I'm reading something, usually it's scripture, or I'm listening to music to go to bed. I have to sandwich my day so that way when I'm going to sleep, I am in a content and peaceful state. When I'm waking up, I'm in a content and peaceful state. A lot of times the negative energy that we have is because of the way that we are waking up, or the way that we are going to sleep, or even if we are going to sleep at all. So understanding, like, what am I listening to, and when am I listening to those things? And that's how you can kind of determine, like, if there's any changes that you need to make, and what you're taking in. When I say I sandwich my day, usually my mornings are usually super duper positive. When I hit, like, after lunch, I may listen to like some gossip blogs or whatever, just because for my own enjoyment. But then when I get to like after 8 p.m., I stop eating, because after, you don't want to go to sleep on a full stomach. But then after that, I'm usually hydrating, and then I'm winding down. I'm doing some reading. Now, granted, I will still watch a few things here and there, but right before bed, I try to make sure that I am going to sleep on something peaceful and positive, and then that's how I start and end my days. So that works for me. Also, too, when I'm in a moody, like just a very moody, I have a playlist that I play, that I go to. And the playlist is literally called Is You Mad? That's literally what it's called. It's called Is You Mad? And it just has a bunch of songs on there that puts me in a state of gratitude, that puts me in a state of positivity, that puts me in a state of perspective, and reminding me the type of mindset that I want to have. So anytime that I find myself moody, and it's something that I acknowledge, and it's something that I see, I turn either my headphones on, or if I work from home, so I can just play the music. But I instantly put it on, just to kind of get myself and reset myself and put myself in a better mood. So if that's something that helps, that's great too. But those are what I use. Um, so that was, what are you listening to? And then, of course, what are you watching? And does it reflect the mindset that you want to have, right? Are you constantly watching a lot of violence? If you're constantly watching a lot, even if it comes to like playing games and things of that matter, like, what are you watching? What are you taking in through your eye gate, right? And what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? And if there's any changes that you need to make, can you make those changes? And it goes the same way that I said with music. Like if making sure that when you're watching, what you're watching in the mornings, what you're watching at night is more positive. You may need to sandwich your days. You may need to reserve like the shows that you really like to watch that are a little bit more violent towards the weekend, and then during the week that you stay and remain a little bit more positive. Like there's so many different ways that you can do it, but understanding and taking time to think about what you're actually watching and consuming will help you to reflect on your actual mindset and why you are or why you're not positive. So keep that in mind. That's also your social media. Like maybe there's some people you need to unfollow. Maybe there's some people you need to follow, right? So that way you're not scrolling and seeing trauma, 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 trigger, trauma, trauma, trigger. Like there's a huge aspect of that where if you and you can change your algorithm quickly. Just start liking and following pages that are a better state of mind as far as like what you want to reflect as your mindset. But if you are a heavy social media person, that's a big aspect of it because that's what's going through your eyes. You're just scrolling, 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 and it could be just a lot of trauma that you're watching every day. And then we wonder why we're negative. We wonder why we're frustrated. We wonder why we're depressed. We wonder why we have so many things that's happening in our minds. And a lot of it has to do with our environment, which is including what we're hearing, what we're seeing. Um, and then when it comes to being aware of your changes of your environment, who are you confiding in? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Do the people that you surround yourself with have the mindset that you want to have? Or do they have a negative mindset? And that's why it's coming out from you. What flows in your mind and what flows into your heart is what you're going to get, right? So if what's flowing from your mind and your heart is negativity all of the time, then that means that's what's going into it, right? So understanding that who you surrounding yourself with is important. Who you confide in is important. If the person that you're confiding in is always negative and they are never have anything positive to say, doesn't mean that they can't be your friend or can't be someone that you can be around, but that may be somebody that you don't want to confide in. Maybe that's someone that you hang out with, you chill with, but that's not necessarily somebody that you need to confide in for your concerns or your struggles in life, right? So taking that into consideration, that includes family. If you have family members, you got a cousin, your parents are negative, like take into consideration all of that and be very restrictive on who you confide in, because who you confide in is how you're going to shape your approach. Even if you do it consciously or subconsciously, that's how you're going to shape your approach to the issues of life. And so being careful about who you're confiding in, who you're talking to, the mind frame of the people around you will speak a lot to the mind frame of yourself. Um, not saying to isolate yourself, but if you need to take a step back from the people that you're around because they are, heavily negative, and you need to do that for a period of time, consider that, right? That is actually a healthy way of reframing your mindset, is by not self-isolating to the point where you're isolating for months and months and months, because that can be damaging. But even if it's just like a week or two where you just kind of pull back from social media, pull back from people that you are consistently hanging out with. And if you need to communicate that to them, communicate it like, hey, I got a lot of things going on right now. I just need to take a step back so that way I can collect myself. Then communicate that. That's perfectly okay. But it's important to have that time to yourself to where you can kind of reset, because life can be a lot, especially when you're running here, going to work, running with the kids, doing this, doing that. It's a lot. So there's nothing wrong with that. Who do you confide in? Yes. And then lastly, and this is important. This was important for me, and this may be easier for some than others, but do you enjoy being alone and being at home, right? because of the fact that a lot of times we're negative because we are not comfortable in our own skin, and we're not comfortable in our safe space, which is home, right? And in those moments, like I said, this is easier for some than others, because if your environment has people in it that aren't the most positive, and this can be more difficult than those who live alone, or for those who have a positive home. But thinking about ways that you can make your home environment more positive. So the first question I always ask is, do you enjoy being home? If so, why or why not, right? How can I make my home a safe space? What does my home look like? Is my home cluttered? Is my home reflect my brain? Because a lot of times it does. If you have a hard time keeping things clean, or if things are cluttered, or you do clean it, but then the next 5 minutes is dirty. A lot of times that's a reflection of our brain, right? And we keep our home the way that our brain is kept a lot of the times. So if you're having difficulty with your negative thoughts, look at your home, right? How is it set up? Are you comfortable there? Is it an environment that you feel safe? Is it an environment that you feel like you can be yourself? Is it an environment that you can express yourself in a way to where it allows you to explore and be creative, and be just who you are, be authentically you and genuinely you? And I say this because, and it may not sound like it's connected, but it is very connected to positivity, because of the fact that if you don't feel that, if you don't feel like your environment is safe, if you don't feel like your environment is a safe space, then it's going to be very hard for you to remain positive, because you're in survival mode all the time. We're in survival mode when we go out in the world, right? When we go out in the world and we go to work and we go through the streets and we go to the store and we go to all of these things, we're typically a lot of times on edge at some capacity, because you're trying to, do your job at work, but then you also have to keep tabs on what's happening around you. When you're going to the store, people are acting crazy. There's crazy things happening. You got to stay safe. You got to be, in a space of on guard sometimes when you're walking out. So when you're at home, that should be your safe space. That should be the space where you feel comfortable and you have a sense of relaxation and contentment. And if you don't have that at home, then that means you're always in survivor. You're always in survival mode. And being in survival mode, what that does to the body is over time, it creates trauma in the body. And we're holding that in our muscles and our tissues. We're holding that in our stomach. We're holding that in our minds. We're holding that in our shoulders. We're holding that all over within our body, within our nervous system. And so we're always going to be in survival mode. So when you're always in survival mode, negativity is going to be your default. It's always going to be your default, because of the fact that your body is not in a space, or for a long period of time isn't in a space where you even feel comfortable, where you even feel like you even can pull out or muster up some form of positivity. So keep that in mind. Your environment is so important. It's so crucial. And sometimes we have to do crazy things to get out of those environments. So just really think about it. I'm not saying to take action tonight. I'm just saying to really think about your environment and what you can do to make it a more safe place to be. If that's what you feel. If you feel safe at home, then great. Then you are in a great spot to continue with remaining positive. But if you're not, if there's anything that you can do to remove yourself from that environment, or to have that environment be created into a better place to be, that's a good place to start. I know I talked through a lot, y'all, but I think your home space is so important to mental health, because that's where you're going to spend your time, and that's supposed to be your safe space. I know that was long, y'all. I'm sorry. Last point before we go to affirmations. Practicing gratitude and self-compassion, right? Point number 4, practicing gratitude and self-compassion. When you're thinking about gratitude and self-compassion, it's very important that it's practiced, that it's genuine, that it's realistic, and that it's consistent. Okay? That it's practiced. So gratitude and self-compassion needs to be practiced, genuine, realistic, and consistent. When I say realistic, that's when I was talking about the toxic positivity aspect at the top of the call. Toxic positivity, being positive while dismissing feelings, being positive while you're just saying like, oh, good vibes all the time, but you're not validating or being very dismissive of the actual emotions that you have internally. You're ignoring those feelings and emotions, and those feelings and emotions may be negative feelings and emotions or difficult feelings and emotions. I don't even want to say negative emotions, because negative emotions, I guess like envy and jealousy and things would be more negative, but I feel like if it's warranted, anger is not necessarily a negative emotion. It's just a reaction to what is happening. And a lot of times that anger is valid. Sadness is valid. If you lose someone, then, you being sad isn't necessarily negative. It's just a matter of, that's how I'm responding to this particular situation. So being realistic means taking into consideration how you're really feeling while not allowing those feelings and emotions to become victimized, as we talked about before. Taking on those labels as identity versus it just being how you're feeling or a symptom of how you're feeling, and making sure that we're validating those feelings and emotions. That's what's being realistic, because you may want to be positive, but the situation that you're in may not be the best situation. So acknowledging that and understanding that without dismissing those feelings and emotions and validating them, but the positivity piece comes into your mindset and your perspective and how you view that situation versus the situation in itself. So I hope that's helpful. Practicing gratitude and self-compassion needs to be practiced, needs to be genuine, needs to be realistic, and needs to be consistent. I hope that this was helpful, y'all. The 4 points were: be intentional about remaining positive, reframing your thoughts, so that way you can challenge your negative emotions, be aware and make changes to your environment as needed, and practicing gratitude and self-compassion. Affirmations. So we have 6 affirmations, right? Yes, 6 affirmations that we can take away. You can use these affirmations however you wish to. So you can use them in your journaling. You can use them by writing on sticky notes, however you wish to use them. If you want to record yourself saying them, if you only want to write down one or two, the ones or twos that make the most sense for you, please do. This is just a framework. You can change the language. You can change how they're worded, however you want to do it, but a framework for you to use moving forward. So affirmations here, I have 6 here. Number 1 is: I can remain positive while acknowledging my struggles. I can remain positive while acknowledging my struggles. I can remain positive while acknowledging my struggles. Positivity and difficulty can exist at the same time. Okay, so just understanding that positivity and difficulty can exist at the same time. Just because you're in a difficult situation doesn't mean that you can't be positive in that situation, nor should you feel guilty for being positive in that situation. So that's what that means. I can remain positive while acknowledging my struggles. Number 2, I release the need to force happiness. I embrace what I truly feel. I release the need to force happiness. I embrace what I truly feel. I release the need to force happiness. I embrace what I truly feel. This goes back to that being realistic about what we're feeling, right? And our emotions, and not dismissing them, but validating them without taking that on as a victimhood, right? So I release the need to force happiness, We don't want to force happiness, because one, happiness means you are happy based off of what is happening, right? You're excited about what's happening. But if what's happening isn't happy, then it's okay to not be happy. Like it's like that's a part of life. There are some times in life that we're going to be super happy with what's happening, and there's other times in life that we're not going to be happy with what's happening. That's okay. If you're not happy all the time, that doesn't mean that you failed in life. It just means that you are going through life. That's how it works. Um, so that was number two. I release the need to force happiness. I embrace what I truly feel. Number three, it's okay to have hard days. I give myself love and grace. It's okay to have hard days. I give myself love and grace. It's okay to have hard days. I give myself love and grace. So just understanding again that hard days are going to come. That's okay. Just practicing, again, gratitude, self-compassion, making sure that it is practiced, that it's consistent, it is genuine, and it's realistic. Okay? Keeping that in mind. Number four, I release the need for perfection and embrace authentic healing. I release the need for perfection and embrace authentic healing. I release the need for perfection and embrace authentic healing. A lot of times we struggle with being being positive because we want things to be perfect. And when they're not perfect, then we're automatically resulting to negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, and behaviors. So understanding that you have to release that need to be in control. You have to release that need to be perfect in order for you to embrace healing, but also for you to embrace a positive mindset. So keep that in mind. And we got two more. Last two, I create space for joy even during difficult times. I create space for joy even during difficult times. I create space for joy even during difficult times. So this kind of goes back to the first one when we're talking about remaining positive while acknowledging our struggles. Joy and difficulty can exist at the same time. Joy and difficulty can exist at the same time. So understanding that and being okay with that. I think a lot of times we experience that struggle of joy versus difficulty when it comes to grief, especially when it comes to grieving. Like when it comes to grieving, like people, if someone passes away, we feel like we can't be happy anymore. We can't have it great times, or we can't laugh, or we can't enjoy ourselves because the person is no longer here. And so we have this struggle of being happy versus being sad, and we create or stew in our sadness because we feel like we have to, right? So understanding that you can create space for joy even in those difficult times, and that's how you're able to build resilience. That's how you're able to shift your perspective and to shift your mindset. Sometimes we stay in our sadness or stay in our frustration and our anger as a way of punishment, whether it be a punishment to ourselves or the person that we're angry with. So we try to force ourselves. You ever try to stay mad? You're like, no, I don't want to be excited. I want to stay mad for another day or so. Like that's what I'm talking about. So it's okay to create that space for joy during difficult times, because that's what's going to help you to remain positive, or to stay in a positive mindset. And then lastly, which is it's a longer affirmation, but I think it's important. Challenging my negative thoughts flows naturally, and I replace them with truth, kindness, and compassion. Challenging my negative thoughts flows naturally, and I replace them with truth, kindness, and compassion. One last time. Challenging my negative thoughts flows naturally, and I replace them with truth, kindness, and compassion. So challenging my negative thoughts flows naturally is like a faith statement, right? That's something that you may not have that now, but that's something that you want to embrace and attach to. So that way that eventually becomes natural, because it can, as you practice it, as you continue to challenge your negative thoughts, as you do it consistently, it can become an automatic response. And when it becomes an automatic response, that's when you know that you're evolving, when you're changing and you're growing, right? So challenging my negative thoughts flows naturally. But once you challenge those negative thoughts, the really important aspect of it is you have to replace it with something. You can't just challenge the thought and then it goes away. You have to challenge it, but then replace it. So challenge it with truth if it's a lie. If it's a lie that you're telling yourself, or it's a lie that you have believed, a core belief that you believed about yourself or about others. So replace it with truth, replace it with kindness, replace it with compassion. Okay. And I'll also even add, if you want, replace it with love. Love cancels negativity, right? So cancel it with that truth, cancel it with kindness, cancel it with compassion, but most of all, cancel it with love for yourself and for others, because it could be a core belief about other people. So I hope this was helpful, y'all. I'll go back to the top of affirmations. I can remain positive while acknowledging my struggles. I release the need to force happiness. I embrace what I truly feel. It's okay to have hard days. I give myself love and grace. I release the need for perfection. No, I need protection. I release the need for perfection and embrace authentic healing. I create space for joy even during difficult times. And lastly, challenging my negative thoughts flows naturally, and I replace them with truth, kindness, and compassion, and love. We'll add love on the end. I hope this was helpful, y'all. That's it. If you have not signed up for the newsletter every week, make sure to sign up at haveninspired.com. You'll be able to get the newsletter where it has a brief overview of what we talked about, and then it has the link for you to come back to the video in case you need to rewatch and get more information. So you can go to haveninspired.com. The link will be in the bio. Also, if you have any questions, definitely let me know. Let me know in the comments. Talk back to me in the comments on the video. The video will be posted up in a few minutes. And yeah, I hope this is helpful, y'all. Next week, yes, we should still be having a live next week as well. You're also going to get meditations this week too. I'm hoping that they'll be posted either Tuesday or Wednesday. Hopefully tomorrow, but we'll see. It might be Wednesday. And yeah, y'all all have a great rest of your night. I hope all is well. Be blessed this week, and I will see you all soon. Bye-bye.